What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Do It Dan, back at it again with another review video. Today we're going to be riding a 2015 BMW R nineT. Yes, the hipster of all motorcycles. My apologies right now to Boris on Bikes, but this is the epitome of hipster motorcycles. That's right. So I've been trying to find new bikes to review and ride at WOW. They came at me with a nineT to ride today, and boy, I tell you what, this has been one of my favorite bikes for a long time. Listen to that exhaust, it sounds good. Got a very supermoto-y sound to it. I won't lie, it sounds a lot like a 450. Today I'm going to be recording in 4K. We're going to try to make this, the quality of the bike look pristine. So I'm sorry it's not its silky smooth, usual 60 frames a second. Now I do have some bad news before we get started this review. Because this is a little bit more of an exotic bike, BMW, I've been asked to ride it kind of easy. She said, please don't ride this like you do your normal bikes. Basically requesting me to not drive it like I normally would, not do dank wheelies and stuff like that. So I can't be doing all that. So I'm gonna try to make a good review without driving like a total dickhead. Here's something that's very interesting. The torque. So the whole bike jiggle jaggles. So this bike is a 1200cc flat twin. What I mean by flat twin, it means that the cylinders are flat. So with the V engine, you have the engine that's shaped like a V. So the pistons fire like this. An inline engine, the pistons are in a line and they fire like this. But this is a flat engine, or a boxer engine if you drive a Subaru. Shoots out like this, bang, 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 or bang, 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 bang. It's hard to explain, but you can tell by the cylinder heads how they're, sticking out to the left and right side of the bike. This is something that Porsche has done in their cars for years. Matter of fact, most Porsches are still today boxer or flat engines. I don't necessarily know what the benefits of a flat versus a V versus an inline are. I have no idea how the torque curve relates to that of like a V engine. I'm assuming that this bike feels pretty torquey down low, so I'm assuming the torque would be comparable to a V twin. I mean, it is a twin, it's just a flat twin. And instead of a flat like you'd find in like a 911 Porsche. If I had to make a guess without knowing anything, I'd say that you get a lot of the same benefits as you would as a V twin, just a lot of low-end torque. I don't know how it rings out, but it's got a pretty low red line at just 8,500 RPM. That's about what, like, I think a new Mustang GT, about what those red line at. But I believe me, and the comments will correct me if I'm wrong, one of the major benefits of a flat versus an inline is the low end to mid-range torque. I don't know how it runs up top end, we'll get there in a second. But man, this is the most hipster bike in the world, and I love it. The moment I saw this bike, I instantly fell in love with it. I don't know if it's just because it's got that kind of cafe racer style. It's got a lot of aftermarket parts too. It's got a full SC exhaust, forged aluminum wheels that look absolutely gorgeous. This polished aluminum that just goes great with this design. Normally these have you can either get these in a polished aluminum tank, like I think Boris on Bikes, I think his is a polished aluminum as well. Wow, she really pulls even in the mid to top end. Wow. With a lot of the bikes I review, depending on what type of engine you have, just interesting, very interesting. I have to take it kind of easy in these turns too. They just threw a brand new set of tires on this bike. But with a lot of the bikes I review, a V-twin has a lot of low-end torque. It's real punchy in the bottom end, and then it peters out up top normally. With an inline, it's really lacking in the low end, but makes for it itself at the mid to high RPM, especially with like a 600cc like an R6. Those redline at about, like, I think 16,000 RPM. After 8,000 RPM, it's a rocket. It takes off and it accelerates. But this, it's got the punchy low end torque of a V-twin and the mid to top end of an inline. So I think I was wrong about my consensus of how this bike feels. Like, just a second gear pull at 4,000 RPM. just accelerates. And what's even crazier about this is the amount of, I'll call it torque steer because I don't know what it's called on a motorcycle, but you'll notice that in a second here, I'll pull in the clutch and I'll rev it and you'll see the whole bike jiggle. Here, all right, so watch this. Whether that be the firing order of the engine or just the pure torque, it makes the whole bike torque to one side just by sheer power of the engine. The only other bike that I've ever ridden that's exaggerated it this much would be a Rocket 3. That's I believe a 2300cc. What's up, guys? 2300cc inline 3 made by Triumph. That Rocket 3 is absolutely insane when it comes to just pure power. The whole bike, when it accelerates, picks itself up onto itself. It's hard to explain, and it's a feeling you can only get from riding a Rocket 3. But I call this a hipster bike specifically because of the fact that the general person, just because of the people who ride them, are usually three-quarter helmets, some sort of goofy goggles, a plaid t-shirt that's got motorcycle padding in it, you know? Chase on Two Wheels special edition work boots that have like a pad so you don't scuff up your nice work shoe boot things, whatever you want to call them. Not to mention the fact that it's not domestic. Wow, what a punch! I was not expecting it from this bike, and it is a 1200. It's based on the same engine that's in the Sport Touring 1200 BMWs that have, you know, they have the same flat engine, but it's built a little bit differently. It's tuned differently. It's built for more performance than it is, I guess, comfortability riding. And that sound, it's very weird because I like the sound, but I don't want to because it almost resembles that of a 250. Especially in the low RPMs. If you get this next to a like a Ninja 250, it's gonna have a similar sound. Thank you. I'm having to keep it at about a quarter throttle because I can feel that front wheel lifting, and I really don't want it to lift on me and then set it back down on this bike, specifically because the tires are new. I don't want to wash out the front and wreck this bike because that'll be a bad day for everybody. Now, this bike also has an aftermarket whole front end assembly. It's been gone through by I don't recall the company name, but wow! I'm very surprised by this bike's speed. I knew it was going to be a torquey bike, but I wasn't expecting the top end power that it has. But a full aftermarket front end assembly, a couple rear aftermarket carbon fiber bits, the aftermarket trunk, which is actually really cool. Of course, all carbon fiber. Stay in your lane! What are you doing? As I rip it through this rural neighborhood, that like a jack wagon. Motorcycle mentality. What I really like is how strange it is, because it feels really tame when you're riding it around like a normal person, but then you romp on it and it becomes a completely different bike. When you ride the H2, you know that bike is an H2. Gosh! That torque makes me a little nervous, because when you come off the accelerator, shift gears, it kicks back over for a second. I mean, it's stable. It's got a steering damper on it, which really helps a lot. And now, one thing I will say is that I'm not usually a fan of naked front end bikes. I don't know if it's a mental thing, but not having this like front end protection always makes me feel like the handlebars feel a little bit jigglier. I don't know if that's just a me thing, or if that's a thing in general. I have no idea. But what I have to say is that this bike holds its own very well. Now, what I don't like, there are a few things that I don't like, and one of them is these bar mirrors. I used to love bar end mirrors on my bikes, but I've kind of stepped away. I almost prefer factory mirrors now, because yes, factory mirrors generally look like ass. It's just how they are, but they function great. I have yet to come across an aftermarket mirror that functions as well as factory mirrors do. It's just part of aftermarket versus OEM. Not very many companies are built around, especially in the motorcycle industry. You have a lot of companies who make cheap, crappy aftermarket mirrors, and I'm not saying that these are crappy. These actually are all metal construction. They're good quality, but gosh darn, they're hard to see out of. I kind of have to really get down. Since they're so small, I would prefer a bigger set of bar end mirrors for this bike in particular. Oh, I got some front end lift there off that peak. Not a huge fan of the mirrors. I would probably change those. One thing I wasn't expecting about riding this, I was really expecting to feel a lot of the weight of the cylinder heads going into turns. And I don't know if it's just this particular bike that's balanced well, but you don't. It feels just like a regular sport bike, and that's not something I was expecting. Now, another thing I'm not a huge fan of about this bike, the seating position, a cafe racer style. It's like a weird mix between a cafe and something else. I don't know. The seating positions, it's just in an awkward mix between completely upright and sport bike. It's like, it's not quite sure what it wants to be, and I think this bike is a little sexually confused. It's like, am I a sport bike? Am I an antique cafe racer? What am I? I don't know. And the truth is, it's kind of a mixture of both. You know, you have the power of, let's say, like a 600cc sport bike, at least the torque of it, and at the same time, you also have kind of like the more of a seating position of a dual sport, and it's got a dual sporty sound. I guarantee if you were to put this bike revving up next to me between that and a DRZ 400, it would be almost impossible for me to tell the difference. It does have a brappy dirt bike sound to it, especially that low end grunt. You know, it's such a big get it in those low RPMs and you just listen to it idle. DRZ 400 right there. But while the seating position might not be the most comfortable, the seat itself is very cushiony, at least on this particular bike. I believe it's an aftermarket seat. I've never ridden a stock one of these, so I couldn't tell you. I know it's a 1200, but I just didn't expect the engine configuration to give it all of it, you know? I ride a BMW 1200. My idea of going out is to Long John Silver's. I ride a BMW R9T. My flannel t-shirt has motorcycle padding in it. I ride an R9T, the official bike of beards and not knowing how to use an axe. BMW R9T, the official bike of the techno lumberjack. R9T, every article of clothing that I own has a little bit of leather in it. BMW R9T. I shop at Goodwill to pick up chicks. BMW R9T. I have a golden retriever that doesn't know how to fetch. I even wore my new hipster jacket today to fit this bike.